Hello, 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 everybody. Oh my gosh, are you super pumped for today? Because let me tell you, if you are not pumped yet, you need to get ready, get pumped, and get excited because we have two powerhouse, that's right, powerhouse ladies in the group today. We have two powerhouse ladies who are coming on to share with you all of the things that are going to be needed to, turn your passion into profits, how to, get your creativity into your business, how to network during these times. I don't know about you, but that is a big one for us right now. How do we network during these times? And also, we're going to be talking about the power of productivity. The power of the process. So I have two amazing ladies here today. I have Lisa Condon from Red Sapphire Consulting, and I have Vered Lerner, who is going to be coming in from BizStance. She is amazing. You guys, we have incredible powerhouse speakers. So if you are ready, I want to see in the comments that you guys are ready. I want to see that you're fired up. I want to see that you are ready to go because we are going to go bold and we are going to go all of the way. So jump on in, jump on in, jump on in. Here we go. And I'm going to bring Lisa in just one moment. So get ready, get prepared. We have amazing lineup of ladies today that are just going to be pouring into you. They're going to be pouring into you, serving you in a big, powerful way. So let me bring Lisa on here real fast. All right, guys, here she comes. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, how are you?
I am so good. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I love your energy. This is great.
Oh, I'm excited to be here, Val, and be with you today. What an exciting week for you, girl.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it has been so incredibly fun. So I was talking to the audience about you and introducing you a little bit, and I wanted to share that for those of you who don't know Lisa yet, you are going to want to know her because when she had originally filled out a form, she had talked about, combining her creativity and her business. And I was like, ooh, my ears perked up a little bit. And then I dove into your company and I was like, oh my goodness, you're doing everything from, business strategy, consulting, grant writing, all of these things. And I was event planning. And I was just like, okay, this is my kind of girl, like the multi-passionate, creative business type. So I'm super excited to have you on here. So share a little bit about you and who you are.
Sure, absolutely, Val. And again, thank you for having me. And I love that you dug in a little bit because to say everything that I do in a short snippet is really difficult. But I run Red Sapphire Consulting, and essentially it started off with people just asking me, do you consult? Do you consult? Because I've been in the business corporate world for a really long time. Yet what I realized was my values weren't aligning. And so my top two values are creativity and integrity. And so I took that and started doing all of these things and figured out I am multi-passionate. I love to do so much. So yes, I do a lot of strategic planning and project management across industry. So it's not just one particular industry. I also have clients who are solopreneurs to companies that are, 5,000, 6,000 people across the United States and beyond. But ultimately, what I help them do is really figure out where they want to get to, and then we create the path to get there. And some of it could be through events, some of it could be through grant writing if they're a nonprofit, some of it could be through just team development and helping them to bridge that gap between different teams within the organization or within their own team. So that's what I bring to the table. And the creative piece, I think, is building that platform out for them because every company is different and all the personalities within those companies are different as well.
I love that you said that because, I'm noticing that a lot with the transition to the virtual world, which we were kind of, forced into. I think it was going that way, but we definitely got into it. But I've noticed that with, certain populations or certain demographics that are the old way of just like having your website I just experienced that with the client myself, like, the website, but you're talking about building out multiple platforms, which I love, because I do think that there, a lot of people getting into the online space in their businesses or however they're pivoting during this time, they don't realize that there's so many platforms out there available that do these incredible different things that you're talking about. So have you had experience with that as well?
I have. And I think what's been really exciting about the pandemic, and, using excitement and pandemic in the same sentence seems crazy, but I think the pivot that you're talking about has led to a lot of innovation within people's businesses. And so the hybrid model is becoming increasingly not only important, but vital for the growth of businesses. Also, the brick and mortar piece, spending money on brick and mortar isn't as important because there are all of these different platforms. Even with this, you have Zoom, you have WebEx, you have Teams. There's again, just so many platforms from which to connect tech wise, but there's a different way of thinking about business as well with these platforms and just how to connect. And I think it's also going to lead to growth with remote employees. So you're going to find the best candidate for your company and for a position you might have open that might not be in your backyard, and they're not going to come in every day. They might be 500 miles away, but that's okay because we have this technology that we can utilize.
I love that. And so I agree that, now people are, I mean, we're seeing that I'm in like the suburb of a resort town. So we kind of have, a lot of people coming from the bigger cities coming into to live here for the lifestyle, but they still have their jobs that they're doing. And I love how, something that you shared that you talk about is the power of process.
Yes.
I love that because, I feel like we're very similar. I'm picking up on this vibe that we're very similar. Like we like the, the creativity, the energy, but we also like the process piece. So I was really drawn to that thought that you were talking about, the power of process.
Sure.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So I am a process geek, and I will fully admit that. I am a Six Sigma black belt. I'm a Scrum Master. I'm a CSPO. Anything that I can get my hands on to really understand how to build process in the best way to meet the client where they're at, I'm all about it. Because I also think spontaneity comes through structure. And so when you are able to build out an incredibly efficient process and have this really solid foundation from which to build, whether it's your schedule, whether it's how you move somebody through a manufacturing line or move a product through a manufacturing line or somebody through your programming, whatever it looks like, if that is structured and it's incredibly efficient, that gives you the opportunity to be spontaneous, to pivot when you need to. But if all you're doing is every single time reworking the wheel and feeling like you're restarting, number one, it takes longer. But also, I think you end up missing critical points of what your business brings to the table. So you have to make sure you're hitting that consistently every single time. And then you can add in and pepper in things that you either want to try, you want to beta test, or it just, again, meets the client where they're at, and it's just that added value. So to me, process is everything. It truly is. And if you don't have it, or if you have a process that might seem a little outdated, like again, with the pandemic, I had a client actually, Val, where they didn't have a platform on which to do anything virtual. So, and they had, I'm going to say 120-ish employees. And so I had to help them figure out, how do you move everybody home and what does that look like? And so that took some pivoting, but the good news was that their processes for everything else were in place, that they could focus on that, and everything else was just a well-oiled machine. Yeah.
I love that. That speaks so much to that being prepared. And I think as business owners, regardless of if people are just starting out, if they're expanding, if they're growing, wherever they're at, there will be those surprises. I think that's something 2020 has taught us all, that we're all going through this. And so, having that, I love that you talk about the processes, because I love that too, like having the strategy, the structure, the process, and having the room to pivot and shift and maybe find out more about your client. I love that you talk about that. And if you could share with us, so for the person that's watching right now, because I know the audience, I know that they're thinking this right now. Okay, so I've had this business and, I went into business because I love doing what I do, but how do I start on this process? How do I create this process you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of ways to do it, but the very first thing is you have to take stock of what you have a process, whether you believe it or not. There is a process you're going through. It might be all over the place. It might feel like Family Circus back in the day when Billy was all over the place and it's a scavenger hunt, but you have one. So what you need to do is you need to actually document what your current process looks like and going from start to finish. So if you own a retail shop and a client walks in the door or a potential customer walks in the door, how do you make sure they walk out the door with something from your store? What does that process look like? And you just document it. And the thing about documenting it is, number one, you can see where your redundancies are. So if you are doing the same thing multiple times in the process, where do you figure out how to do it just once? Makes it more efficient. The second thing that it does is it identifies gaps as well. And it could be a gap in personnel. It could be a gap in, like I said, personnel. It could be a gap in documentation that you might need. It could be a gap in the technologies you might need, whatever that looks like. So it helps identify that, which again goes back to the efficiency piece of it. But I do think it's taking stock and being realistic with yourself. When you're documenting it, if something's missing, don't beat yourself up about it. You can fix it. That's the great thing about process. It's not feelings. It is just literally facts that you're putting down, and then you can figure out a way to either make it shorter or get to a different end result. I personally look at my processes once a year, and I take stock of them and see if I have to redo any of my processes and just redesign them a little bit, because my business might have shifted. And again, 2020, I think a lot of people saw that. But now that things are going to start opening up, what do you want your business to look like now? And so it's a good opportunity to dust off those processes and seeing what needs to shift.
I love that, because, something I talk about quite a bit is like, which is totally in alignment with what you just said, is, you're always managing those two businesses, the one you have now and the one you're going toward. And, process is, what you said was so genius. I hope people are really paying attention and hearing this point that she just made. Lisa made an excellent point of documenting the process. And let me tell you, as I was growing, expanding, and hiring a team, that was one of my biggest lessons to learn. And if you guys take that nugget of information that Lisa just gave you and actually do that, you are going to save yourself a whole heartache when you get into the structure of, what if you're on vacation or you're hiring your team out or, expanding. If you document your process, like that right there was a gold nugget for sure, of documenting the process. Because if it's all up here, you're really if you're the solo entrepreneur, then you're limiting your growth. So I love that.
And you know what, Val, I also think what it does is, as you're growing your team, it allows you to go back together with a team member and say, hey, this is actually what it looks like. So if you're not in alignment on something, you can go back and look at that documented process, and it can really make a difference. I'm actually hiring for somebody right now, and I put together a full-on job description, and I'm in a mastermind group, and I was telling them about it, and they said, you wrote a job description? Yes, I did. I absolutely did, because I want to be able to refer back to that and know this is what they're going to be doing. This is the process that they're going to follow. And if we need to switch it or tweak it, then we can do that as we move forward with the role. But it's also a good go-to and a good reminder.
Oh my gosh, I am so glad that the conversation went here. And I want to dive a little bit deeper and pull a couple strings out there, because, that is something that, as we talk about, transitioning from either solo entrepreneurship, which I know some people are at right now, or, building out that team. One of the biggest things that you shared about with that is keeping that accountability and communication open. Because I know for me, one of the biggest painful things, and I know somebody out there is going through this and needs to hear this, is that as I was growing, I thought I was the expectation was there. They're just going to get it. Right? You're laughing because you've had the same pain points. And I'm like, I don't get it. I told them what to do and they don't, like, and this thing, but like really honestly, as a CEO, when we step in that leadership role and we then have employees, like we need to over communicate and set that expectation, which I'm hearing you say, which is just brilliant and genius. And this also works for people who are, again, they have clients, they have, like always setting that expectation and getting clarity. And I love that you brought that up.
Mm-hmm. So I think there's a couple of things here. So I think there's the client piece, there's the employee piece, and then there's the contractor piece. So I actually see three buckets. I do think that there's some cross communication in how you do it and the over communication. I agree. We think we're over communicating, but the reality is we're not. We're communicating just at the right level typically. But I also think that the expectations are a little bit different from my point of view. So as a CEO, the expectations that I have of my employees are probably much higher than those that I have of my contractors, because contractors, they're not my W-2s, right? So you can only meet them where they're at and what they bring to the table. And usually you hire them for one very specific thing. Whereas your employees, usually their job descriptions are fairly vast. They're going to have maybe 5 to 10 responsibilities versus just that one that contractor has. So when you're communicating, it really has to be across the board, and that they're representing you. They are representing your company. So they are part of your brand, and we are only as strong as our weakest employee. I mean, that's how strong we are. From a customer perspective, though, or a client perspective, I actually believe that there has to be an agreement for the expectations of not only what do you expect from me because you're hiring me, but what do I expect from you as a good client? And I have an agreement that I sign with my clients, so we're on the same page. And if those change at any time, then we re-sign that document. It's so important. And I didn't start off that way. This was something that came out of process building, where I realized, where I thought we were going, and again, thinking I'm being clear on where we're headed, it didn't always transpire that way. So it's more of a, here's what I said. Now, what do you think I said? What did you hear me say?
Right. Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more, because, and this all comes from, I know you've been in business for a long time. You were founded in 2002, correct?
2002. Yep, that is correct. Yep.
So I know you've gone through those painful processes, and so have I. And I just want to share this because I know there's people that are in that space. I heard a couple of things in that with, there's a big difference between hiring out an employee who has then responsibility to fulfill this agreement, as opposed to hiring out a contractor who is just doing tasks. I love that, because honestly, that is one of the biggest pain points for people growing their businesses and growing their teams, is realizing that, one is just doing a task, but the other one is an extension of your brand. And I think that that's really important for people to land on that and hear that piece.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that there's a time commitment to each of those as well as a leader, because you don't want to be spending your time focusing on trying to improve a relationship with a contractor. I think that if they're not meeting your expectations to do the tasks, like you were saying, then it's a contractual relationship. You can end it. I mean, and that's okay. It's not easy, but it's okay, because you have to have the right person for the right task. The employee piece, you've hired that person for a reason, and usually it's beyond skill set. Usually it's whatever that relationship that you started building, or you just in your gut, you knew it was the right person. So that's where, when you want to spend the time communicating and really putting energy into development of the relationship for their professional development, whatever that looks like, that's where you're going to want to spend your energy and your time.
I love that. That is so beautiful, because it's true. It's like that there's a big difference between just hiring the task, hiring the employee, where you're investing in them as much as they're investing in you. And, with the thought of you being in business, like this is the most fascinating piece for me. You've been in business since 2002. I know. The reason why
I was 5 years old when I started.
5 years old. I know. You were like, I thought you were like at least like 14, maybe started your business. But like the reason why I want to emphasize that is because I know right now it can feel really heavy. A lot of people kind of feel like they've got that gut punch, and maybe they had, the vision of where their business was going. And this has been an upset, whether if they have a brick and mortar or if they're online and they're just not really understanding, because there is a mental toughness that comes with being a business owner.
Mhm.
And so the reason why I want to share that, like emphasize the point that you've been in business for so long, is you've gone through the 2008 crash.
Mhm.
You've gone through the uncertainty. You've gone through the situations where I'm sure you had the ebb and the flow. So I'm really curious to know, what would you tell that person right now that's like, I don't know, is this the right time for me? Should I stay in business? Should I go back to a job which isn't secure either, right? Like, what should I do? What advice would you give that person that's like, I've only been in business a year, maybe 5 years, and this is hard?
Mhm. It is hard. So the advice that I think, oh goodness, there's so much advice.
Right.
Um, well, because at the end of the day, every time is the right time to run your own business. So it doesn't matter if you started your business during a pandemic. It doesn't matter if you start it tomorrow, or if it's been on your heart and you want to pull the trigger, or if you've been in business for 5 years and your sales are way down. I mean, look at anybody who's in the travel industry right now. They were decimated for sure. But at the end of the day, you need to remind yourself why you went into business in the first place. What was that heart space that took you there? What was your why? And I think if you revisit your why you did what you did, you are going to reconnect with that initial passion. You're going to take a step out of that day-to-day monotony, or the emotional wear and tear that you're going through, and it just reconnects you to that real spark and excitement that you had. And once you do that, you're just going to find the energy, remind yourself of that energy, and it will also allow you to take a look at where your business has gotten to, and are you still doing what you wanted to be doing, or is it time to just go back to basics and go back to the simplicity for a little bit? And that's okay. But reconnecting with that why is the most important piece of advice I can give to anybody listening.
Oh my goodness, you guys, go back and watch that every single day whenever you feel that pressure, because that's gold. I mean, what you just said is beautiful, in the fact that, I think that as we evolve and grow, our why kind of shifts. And, I've been through the process of that too, where I've had to like completely just burn my business to the ground almost, or pull back to the basics and, restart and reevaluate what is my why today. Because I'm sure, in the past years of you being in business, you've evolved and
Mhm.
grown, and maybe that expands. Our
Mhm.
lifestyles change, whatever that is, things change and grow, and it's a continuous like process.
Mhm.
So I'm curious to know, what was your why when you started? How has that changed? And like, what is it now?
I'm chuckling because there couldn't be a more poignant question that you asked me today. So my why then was about living my value system. I mentioned earlier where I I'm really I'm a big believer in leading a values-based life and running a values-based business, and aligning those with who I am, because I think when you do that, you feel more fulfilled. And I mean, I was the little girl that played office. I didn't play house. I didn't play with dolls. I played office, and I always knew that I wanted to own a business, but I had gone into the corporate world. I learned a lot. Do not get me wrong; it was wonderful. Yet I needed to step away and truly live my values-based life and business. Um, my why now and my purpose now. So I'm actually, in the next month and a half, I'll be launching my new company, where my mission is to spark inspiration, innovation, and collaboration through gratitude.
Oh,
And that's my why. So I believe in the power of gratitude. I believe there's a process from which to find your gratitude,
wow.
and then to build your business through these other things. And that's my purpose. So my why now has become living my purpose. So that's what I'm aligning with. And it's really exciting, but it's also scary because, again, you're not starting over because, I've been in business a long time. So you can take all of the things that you've learned over the course of time. But it's different. And so, there's a fear factor, I think, for anybody, no matter how long you've been in business, whether it's a day or 10 years or 20 years, it doesn't matter. When you make that shift, am I doing the right thing? Am I moving in the right direction? And the answer is always yes. If you are pulled to do it, it's the right direction.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that you said that because, the fact of what I hear a lot from people is, because we can be, I too, corporate woman, killed it in corporate. And then I was like, I want to do this myself, and, what I hear all the time is, Val, but what if I make the wrong decision?
And how do you answer that? What do you tell them, Val?
I usually say, you know what? I do not believe there is anything but the wrong decision besides not making a decision, because you have one of two choices. Either you make a decision, you fail faster, you learn the lesson, you make the decision, you discover something new, or you make no decision and you're just letting default decide for you. And that's the only wrong decision in my opinion.
I would agree with that. I'm a big believer that the universe puts the right thing in front of you at the right time. And so I don't know that there ever is a wrong decision, because like you just said and alluded to, whatever that outcome is, you figure it out and deal with it. Even if it's not the outcome you expected, then what do you do with that result? And maybe the result's better than you anticipated. Maybe it's not, but it's the lessons that you learn from that, and then where you take it next. It's your reaction to that and your follow-up to it.
Gosh, absolutely. I love that. We're so like-minded in that, because, I know for myself, getting out of that, I say, like, overthinking, overwhelm in my head and into my heart and trusting, which we do not learn in the corporate world, right? It's all logic. So it's like it's this weird transition and mindset of starting to trust self again, instead of trusting the authority of the hierarchy that sometimes we learn in corporate, if that makes sense. It made sense.
100%. Oh my gosh. Actually, so I have a big whiteboard next to me, and I have the word vulnerable equals sharing of yourself and sharing of your truth. And I have it up there because in the corporate environment, that sharing, it's not encouraged. And again, corporate world's just different. And so when you are working and focused on climbing the ladder and getting that promotion or getting that certain role, whatever that looks like, it's a very different mindset than being truly authentic and living your heart space. And so I have to remind myself of that, because it's very easy, no matter how long it's been, to slip back into that, I'm just going to get it done and move to the next thing. That's not living authentically. And it's, I call it living out loud. That's not what it's doing. It's, it's actually makes you a little stagnant. That's what I think.
Oh my goodness. You are a woman after my own heart. I love this. That is my, that is my exact same thinking. And, with a lot of my clients are ex-corporate people, and it's that learning. It's almost like I call it like a coming out process, where you go from being, like somebody thinks they know what they want to do, but then there's that, they finally hit that depth of vulnerability and they're able to share it. That is the most beautiful thing that we get to experience.
Yes. And witnessing it, especially in a client or in somebody who is in your sphere of influence, it's coming from a cocoon to the butterfly, right? And spreading the wings. It is beautiful. And I think it can be very emotional to watch. I've witnessed it many times over my career, and even in corporate world, actually, like people that would leave who worked for me because they were going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, go, I will support you because you are going to start living your best life. And that's what it's about. And, this whole notion of not being able to one person see if this resonates with you, right? You're one person in your professional world and you're one person in your personal world. And I grew up thinking that in the corporate world. But the reality is, it's both sides of the same person. And so by pulling that together, you just never know who you're going to touch with that, especially in business, because when people are shifting and trying to find what business they want to build, it's tapping into everything of who you are, not just this professional side of yourself.
Oh my goodness. I could not agree more, because it is like, you feel like you're living this like double life in corporate. Like, I have to hide this piece and, dress in. I mean, I was totally that woman that was like, I've got to dress, in the man approved, blazer, the whole thing, look this way, act this way, don't talk about God, don't talk about this, hide this piece of me, don't act too outrageous. But then it's like, we come in our business and it's like, I get to be free.
Right. And here's the thing. I also think there's a place for corporate. I really do. I learned so much in the corporate world, and there was a lot I loved about it. And I learned things about myself through that, and skills I had and skills I didn't even realize I had. So to me, it's not to say that corporate's bad, because I don't think that it is. But I think that for recovering corporate folks who who have come out of that world because they wanted to do something different and do their business for themselves, that's where I think this all plays into being that entrepreneur, being that your own CEO, being the president of your company. But take those learnings, both good and bad, that you've learned. And again, I think that there are people who thrive in the corporate world, and I think that's just as wonderful, because we need both for that balance.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I know that there's going to be people who are watching this that are like, I want to get in touch with her. They're hearing something from you and they're wanting to get in touch with you. So how can people find you?
Sure. So my company is Red Sapphire Consulting. They can email me at Lisa, Lisa at redsaphireconsulting.com. And I'm happy, anybody that's listening today, if they mention, Val, that they listen to us talking on here, usually I just do a 30-minute kind of intake call of giving advice or listening to whatever is happening. But I would love to extend that to an hour's time frame for anybody that reaches out and mentions you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for your generosity. I will put that link in here so people can find that. I have it on my sheet here. So I will, gosh, thank you so much. That is so generous. So reach out and get that consultation, because that's amazing.
Oh, well, Val, I so appreciate you having me on. I think what you are doing is very inspiring, and just you are taking that leadership role and bringing it online. And I appreciate being here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on here. I love every single thing you talked about. I am excited to hear about your new company. That is super exciting. And it's great to have someone that has, been through the trials, been through the economy shifts, and, is still thriving. So thank you so much for lending your expertise and your genius with us today.
Oh, well, thank you, Val. You take care.
You too. And guys, we will be taking a small break. We will be back at noon. So I will catch you then. Bye.